emotion, unfortunately, clouds vision, particularly at auctions, but not just at auctions as well. I've had a few conversations this week. It's been very interesting. There are a couple of first-time buyers who are anxious to get into the market to take account of the most recent government support. And then when you actually pay it back, you sort of think about, well, what is that repayment going to look like, even with the government support? Because effectively there is still the question of, can you have capacity to borrow? Property investors are struggling as well. I've had a number of conversations this last week with property investors in Melbourne who are desperate to get out of property. And property investors with units, yes, but also property investments in standalone houses, the ones that you would expect to hold their value better. Well, when you do the numbers, and I've done quite detailed analysis with these people, when you check the money coming in and the money going out, you start to realize that there is a massive gap between what they think's happening and what's actually happening. In fact, I made a show called the Property Investment Mirage yesterday, which I published specifically to show that, in fact, all is not well in property investing in Australia. And unfortunately, the spruiking is getting louder and louder. Of course, Catalyst leads the charge with their latest information saying Australian property market nears 12 trillion as the national price momentum builds. Well, we'll see about that. And then, of course, this one here, first home buyer urgency fuels auction action. Although actually, if you look closely, it's not quite as powerful as the headline might suggest. And in fact, the latest information on property auctions show that there's some significant wobbliness, especially in Victoria, which we'll come back to. And when you actually look at it and think about it in the round, you think, well, there's a really big gap between what the spruikers are actually on about and what's really going on down on the ground in real suburbs where real people are trying to make decisions. And I think it's a bit like they're trying to listen to music when there's a massive noise, a plane going overhead or something similar, right, from all of the mainstream spruiking and from the property portals and all of those different channels. That noise is deafening many people. And frankly, they're just not understanding what's going on. And I find that really worrying and concerning. And the result of all of this is, of course, we've got people who are making really, really bad decisions at the moment. And again, I've had conversations this last week with a few people who are really thinking, I got to jump, because if I don't jump, I'll never jump now, And, well, just be a little bit careful, be cautious, no emotion. But there's a difference between price and valuation and fair value. And I just think people are really being deceived at the moment.